Hello, welcome to today's session. Um, I'm on my own today. Kaizen may be able to drop in a bit later, so otherwise you're stuck with me for today's session. It is going to be on advertising, and advertising is it's actually where I started my work within digital, and I suppose I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with it at the moment. I like what it used to be. It was fantastic. I'm not as big a fan today of it because of how it's transpired. It used to be that the company doing the advertising and paying the money was pretty much the star of the show, as it were. Whereas now it's the ad platform followed by the agency, followed by the client who's paying for it. That's how it kind of feels. So today we're going to go through how you even up the odds a little bit. Some things we've found, some based on questions we got in over the past couple of weeks, and I try and integrate those questions into the slides we have. And it's a fairly quick session I'm going to have today, and this is roughly the agenda, but you know what, I'm not following it strictly. I am going to spend quite a bit of thought and time on advertising strategy, because the more time I spend talking to companies, working with companies, the more I see that is where the big challenge is. It's also where the biggest opportunity lies. Too many just go in and advertise without thinking, well, what am I really doing here? And what you're really doing here is where the money actually is. So we'll spend more time on that. The offset on-site is a big aspect, is good advertising practice. And there are some tools and opportunities within that I will come across also today. First off, the big myth: too many confuse marketing as advertising. Advertising is just one piece of marketing, not the other way around. It's important to have that context. It's where some of the problems lie. Other myths, like the agency is not going to save your business. So getting an agency to do advertising is not going to make your business work. If it was, to be perfectly honest, they wouldn't just be doing advertising for others, would they? They'd be advertising for themselves as well, and they're not. Or they'd become affiliates and sell product and live by it, and they're not. So your own business is going to thrive or not based upon what you do and how you get an agency to work with you. I do have some tips on how to work with agencies and things to consider as you're doing that. While we're here, we're going to be here an hour. So what I'd like you to think about yourself is a few things, because often you can just listen and look at the slides and nod the head and say, yeah, great, that's interesting, and then you forget it 5 minutes later. Whereas if you think about it now and say, okay, how do you advertise today? What should you advertise today? Begin to question your plan, as it were. Where are you strong in your sales pipeline? Where are you weak? What can you do about it? Still a couple of questions I'd have in the back of my mind if I was in this session today with you. So as you can reflect over it as I rattle through different plans. So an advertising plan. And I'd start that with, what are you going to advertise? Too many just start with ads. What creative can I have? Which platform am I going to go on? Let's put some ads live. The result tends to be as half-hearted as that approach, but too many do that approach. So first we need to decide what to advertise. And I'm going to spend a bit of time on that today. And then also, what action do you want from the advertising? It may seem obvious. Actually, it may not. No, I'd say the other way around. Most go the other way around. Most say, I'm just advertising to sell something, and they have ads to suit. That's one of the biggest mistakes you can make. If you're in the direct redemption game, that's where I started. Basically, I started with TV and print media ads. And direct redemption meant when someone seen the ad, they took an action or they didn't. And you sold something off the page. Now, it is quite harsh. I still remember decisions. I made one that stands out. The back page of Sky magazine, which was very big at the time. Huge circulation. But it's 20,000 euros. Do you buy it or not? So we need to make the decision's based on, is it going to sell something for us or not? That's direct redemption game. So I took that into online. And the more time I spend online over the years, the more I do not do direct redemption. The more I look at how do people buy and where does the ad fit into that context. And I'm from direct redemption. I used to, actually, I've never called it that, but it was an agency. I used to run my own. I managed accounts, especially for Google and Google Search, for many years. I don't do that anymore. For various reasons, which we might touch on some of that today. So when you're making sales today, there's some things that are worth checking. And the first point it says, where is the traffic coming from? So someone buys something. Direct traffic to your site should be one of your top 3. Search on your brand name should be in your top 3. And email should round off the top 3. They're the 3 sources of traffic that's buying from you. So when I look at any client and I start looking at, okay, is this going to be easy? Is it going to be hard? How do I want to work with them? If that's not the top 3, there's usually easy-ish opportunities. Not for every single company, but you know what? For the vast majority. In e-commerce, this is very clear for me. It's almost 100% the case. And note here, I'm not saying search in general, I'm saying search on your brand name. It's quite a distinct difference, which we'll come to during today. And then the next tier is social traffic. It's keyword search. Could be referrals and affiliates. That's usually the next tier of traffic. So within that context, what's your advertising trying to do? So you can get brand-based advertising, which tries to drive that. You get lead generation advertising, which tries to drive your email, which then gets your sales. This is what you're trying to do. Where is that traffic coming from? Well, there's a lot of traffic on social today. It's reasonably cheap. So this is what your ad plan should feed into. There's no real conflict in this. And within that, you need to decide then, okay, what am I going to advertise? And I want to show you, I think there's certainly one example. I'm not sure if there's 2. I've also got a few sample ads, which I'll show you the source for as well. But I have one that is not advertising the service that they sell. And I'm a big advocate of that. I always take this type of thing with a pinch of salt. This is Magic Numbers and TikTok. TikTok want to sell advertising. So they're not going to show you examples of where it doesn't work, right? But the principle here is important. If, in terms of awareness, this is a comparative study. So if it's a low awareness of your brand and product or a high awareness, what's the conversion rate impact? And here they're saying is about 2 times. So if you go from your target market, it's important to see target market. It's not all TikTok users. Your target market, if you go from 20% awareness to 60% awareness, you're likely to get a 2 times increase in your conversion rate. That could be conversion rate of leads, could be conversion rate of customers. Again, it's simple. People who know you are more likely to buy from you is how I put it. And here we've got some facts to back it up. Now, this is another factor here. The long and the short of it is quite an interesting article. And it's basically looking at brand versus sales advertising and marketing. I don't think there's a conflict. I actually don't like looking at the world like that. I think it's a very it's an old view of the world that it's one or the other, and it's not. You just decide which piece works where for you. It's all context based. But this one is showing something that's interesting. And apologize for the slide. It's one I just have a screenshot of, and I can't make it any more clear. But basically, more people know you. And this is here they're measuring fame. The better every single metric is, including price sensitivity. So the less price sensitive, they know who you are. Again, it proves the same thing. And they were going for here branding versus non-branding. So the direct redemption, direct sales versus a branding campaign. I don't agree with it all like that. I think there's a principle that both are needed at different times. And how you make that work is what advertising is all about. This piece of research, I showed it here before, so I'm going through it very quickly. And that's regarding the ads and the ad creatives. And this piece of research, it was a tiny percent where the ads wore out. Now, people the companies who were getting new ads all the time, they were getting tired of seeing their own ads, but their viewers were not. We're involved in one ad campaign running for 5 years, the same creative, the same event. People are still signing up, 60 odd last month. It works. The consistency does help. But if I'm, again, as I mentioned in one of these sessions before, if I'm trying to sell, let's say, televisions from 2010 and it's now 2025, that's not likely to work. So context matters. Objectives are call to action, what the results are, and lastly, is advertising the way to achieve this? So our plan is, what are we trying to achieve? What's the objectives of this campaign, or what's the objectives of advertising? What's our calls to action? What do we want people to do? And then what's success? How do we measure results? Now, when you work this through, for an enormous number of B2B companies, you will say, I don't need to advertise, because all of a sudden I can do direct outreach. I know exactly why people should join me. I know exactly what I'm trying to achieve. I got landing pages that convert well. I just need a small bit of traffic. So sometimes the discipline of advertising, good advertising setups, means you don't have to advertise at all. Now, this is all we're trying to do. Every business is trying to do it. And it is a tough job to go from initial awareness to advocacy. It takes a lot of effort and work and alignment. It's an uphill battle. That's why I normally draw sales funnels on the vertical, because gravity doesn't help. In this case, we actually flipped it completely because it is harder as you push uphill. Now, in your campaign, this is your business. Here's your mix of everything you're trying to do to get qualified leads and customers. So what's your mix? How do you make it work? This is where every single business ends up being different. It's unique. Even selling the same thing, you have a unique setup, what I call business design. Another myth, sales is a process, it's not an event. So if you're advertising even for the sale, or are you advertising to get leads and prospects? Where in the buying process are you advertising? And those who say to me, oh yeah, I'm doing both at the same time in the same campaign, which pretty much means they're doing both badly. You know, the campaign to have somebody ask somebody to buy something from you will be different from the campaign where you're asking somebody to sign up for something. Very different call to action, very different type of traffic, and a very different outcome. This is where we have to decide, what are we trying to do? For me, I tend to go with leads and prospects, and actually laterally I'm going more and more for prospects, because if somebody can join and understand what we're doing early in their buyer's journey, they're more likely to then buy from me. And it's my responsibility to try and transfer them from prospects to leads and leads to sales. And the factor there is just time. Sometimes that can be really quickly. Sometimes that can take years. Certainly, I do a lot in the home improvement market, and that cycle can be years. People can contact you a year before they want to buy from you. It doesn't mean you ignore them. It means you help them along the way and make sure you stay top of mind as they do that. You can get advertising just to get awareness. And there's no conflict with any of these three, unless you're trying to do them all at the same time, in the same campaign, with the same type of traffic and the same types of call to action. Then things tend not to work. So I'd have distinctly different campaigns with those three goals. And if you think about it, well, awareness is the first step. The second step is often become leads and prospects. And the third step is advertising, is purchasing. This is why email is so good. So emailers end up in mostly here, bringing from leads to sales. A little bit of background here. This is how people buy. You have to know the target client, what they need. They need to know who you are or find you. You need to know where the clients are. You need to get traffic that will buy, not just any traffic. SEO traffic can be quite messy. So I'm not a huge fan. It's one of the reasons I really like advertising traffic, because I can control it 100%. I know exactly what's going on. So advertising traffic can be really good for that. We have to provide a reason for people to take contact, take an action. We encourage them to buy. We have to make it easy for them to do that. Encourage them to give a review, which we can then use to get more traffic. And we can encourage consumption that will help get more customers to repurchase. So this is all you're trying to do. So where is advertising fitting in? This is the decision you need to begin to make, and what we'll spend a bit of time on today. From the survey we've done, we can see advertising is a real challenge for many companies. Not very many are happy and making it work well. Here we got 14% of that survey. It's a representative survey of Swedish SMEs, small to medium-sized companies. This is what we're seeing regularly as well. The second group here, it's working. We're not sure if they're making money. So basically advertising, we get sales, but we don't know what's working and what's not. So this is what tends to be what's going on with most SMEs at the moment. It's very hard to make advertising work. And part of the problem is the approach. Part of the problem is it's only about the advert. Whereas you need the advert leading to the landing page. It needs to have a call to action that makes sense to the buyer at that time. You need a thank you page, you need welcome emails, and then we have an email sequence to follow that up. This is what makes advertising work. Whereas the focus is all too often just on the advertisement. The whole flow is what will make it profitable. And we need to begin to understand that in a more holistic fashion. But it's even more than that. So off-site, on-site. I had a meeting well over a year ago now with a company in Stockholm, and it was a fantastic opportunity to see some of the new tech that's coming on stream. So off-site means, so let's say you're on Facebook. Let's say you're on even Aftonbladet, for example, the website. You're seeing banners, you're seeing advertisements. That's off-site. It's off your website. On-site means when they're on your website, what did they see? Right? So the two patterns. A lot of sites end up being very static, not being personalized, show the same content to everybody. So there is tech out there right now where you can actually align your off-site with your on-site personalization effectively. So when you show an ad, let's say you're showing an ad for green shoes. When someone clicks the green shoes, when they come to the web page, they also see green shoes without you having to do an enormous amount of work. In the old days, we did this, but we did this basically by giving specific URLs for specific banners and specific ads or dedicated landing pages. A lot more work. Now this is dynamically done with tech. It's really cool as to what's happening. There's a lot of bigger players actually using this today. So you get the alignment between the ads and the landing page. It's one of the worst things you can do is if you have an advertisement that does not align with the landing page. It should be very similar. And here you're personalizing basically with the ad. So the ad is the same, it reflects when they get to the landing page. You can use the manual option. Now, this is where it depends on the volume and it depends on what you're actually advertising. So if I go back to the washing machine scenario, if you're going down the route of selling different white goods, you might have thousands of ads. Then to align that with the page can be tricky. There's tools and tech that will help you do that. This used to be beyond most small to medium-sized businesses. It's now not. So a couple of examples. Bannerflow is the one in Stockholm. They have basically a system for this. And the other one that I know of is Creatofi. I actually think that's how they pronounce it. It is initially a Romanian-based company, and they were basically a more price-sensitive version of Bannerflow. Now, the reason I'm also mentioning Absale here is for ad creative. Sometimes you want to create a lot of ads fairly quickly, or at least more easily. These tools do all of that. So you put in a few options, a few creatives, a few graphics and messages. It creates it in all the sizes you want. Now, there was one tip that I got from when I was talking to Bannerflow, and that was, when you're doing this with advertising, you have all different sizes of banner, and there are lots of different options, and there's some obscure sites that take certain sizes. If you create ads for every single size and feed them into a advertising engine like Google, for example, they will feed the ads to those sites as well. There's less competition on the sites who have ads of let's say, an odd size or an odd format. So that's just a side benefit of using tools like this, because they can create every single size. But the other benefit is you can get alignment with on-site. So if you're doing a lot of advertising and you're doing a lot of volume advertising, it's definitely worth looking at this. And some of the tech there it's fabulous, actually, and it's relatively simple. When you think about it, it's personalization of on-site and off-site, feeding ads to your own website just the same way you're feeding them to the ad engine. So where do people advertise? And this one basically is that Google is still pretty dominant, but Facebook is now 18%. Sorry, the number here isn't as clear as you could. This is 18% for Facebook and 15% for Google search. Now, I would not be, if I was looking at this from your perspective, I would be splitting Google search. And you need to split it into keyword versus your brand name. It's a really important distinction. There are very different types of traffic. So I would never put them into the same bucket. Someone who knows you and is looking for you is very different than somebody is looking for what you provide. Right? Again, if I take the example, looking for a washing machine, or I'm looking for net on net. Looking for net on net, I'm looking to buy one, or because I know that's where I can get what I'm after. Right? Asking people best channels for their business and best channels for growth. You can see it's all about social, right? Facebook, Instagram, and even LinkedIn. I had an interesting one last week with LinkedIn, where consumer companies can also advertise there. And it's mainly to pick a segment. So if you can pick a segment of either type of company, type of person, or position, you can actually address them on LinkedIn. It was the first time I started doing that, and it's quite interesting, and it does work. It puts more pressure on what are you going to advertise, what are you going to promote to them, so it's a little bit less obvious in that sense. When we ask companies what's the most successful channel, we can see here the split. We have social media, obviously, and also our website. Now, a lot of the time, the social media traffic goes to the website, so it's often in together. And what I would start looking at here, there's something interesting here. Paid search, right? It's relatively low. And you have to divide paid search into search on your brand name and search on keywords. So it's even more separated. Same with SEO. SEO people spend an awful lot of money on, but it's not the big gig in this instance. Now, this instance is a representative survey of over 200 Swedish small to medium-sized companies. So where would you advertise? Search is different than social. So it depends on what you're advertising. It depends how you're going to do it. The other one that's really interesting here is influencers. For small to medium-sized companies, there is a big opportunity with influencers, especially the micro influencers. We have a client actually just as of last week that we're working on, and my hypothesis is for them, influencers is going to be the most important sales channel. So we'll spend 3 months getting ready for that. Now, as part of it, you're making it happen. But part of it is also we have to test out, is it a good segment? We're fairly sure it is. So you work for that. So in that case, because it'll be cheaper and long lasting, so you kind of combine all the benefits of social with your product and your target market, and you work on making that happen. You don't just start influencer marketing the next day. you actually need to get ready for it, because you need to get people who want to take your product, which means you need your content plan, you need your social media working for you as well. So where do we get most leads and prospects? Website is still number one, and social media is higher here than I expected. But again, for a lot of these, it's traffic that's sent to the site. We have B2B companies in this as well. So in person, obviously, from referrals, that's an area that there's probably too little been done, because you have existing clients. How do you leverage them to get new ones? That's why I spent a lot of time with a lot of different companies. Cold email, we do a lot of this. It's one of my advertising and cold email are the key areas I do a lot of work with. For B2B, it is fabulous. It still works, and we do it all the time. But we don't do it, please buy my stuff. You need to decide, what's the pitch? How do we get people in? Yeah, referrals lower than it should be my view. The other aspect here is seeing partners as channels to market. Now, when we're doing this survey, and this is the last slide from that, is just to set the context. One of the big areas was the business management systems, the likes of the Fort Knoxes of this world. They are brilliant at using partners as a channel to market. There's so much most companies can learn from that. They obviously do have their ad budget and they do work it, but partners are a huge part of that and their channel to market. So it's worth looking at that as well as we try to get new clients in. I've showed this before, but for completeness, given we're doing an advertising session, I can't not really show this. And different platforms have different intent. And that's what I call the average or the latent intent, as it were. You can impact this enormously by what you say and do, right? But overall, as a picture, people tend to be on socially discovering a topic, finding out stuff. They're scrolling, so they're looking for things. They'll also then find you, especially if you're active here, you can help them find you. This is why content marketing can work. And then they're interested in what you do. Mightn't still be buying from you. Search is on the other end, especially if brand search, they're looking for you. So someone's searching and looking for your brand, they obviously have intent of doing something, and they're obviously interested in you. So hence high intent. Search and intent to buy from your competitors, yes, high intent, but they're not interested in you. This is why brand-based search is really important. It's important to understand. How can you capture that? And that you often capture with keyword search. It's also what you capture from social. Get to know you on social, buy from you from search. It's simple enough, depending on what you do. And this is how it all kind of fits together. But your game plan then is, how do you make that work? And this feeds into advertising. What exactly am I advertising? Am I focused here on when they're ready to buy, then I'm going to grab them on search? When they're discovering topics, is that where I'm going to get on and try and coax them into buying from me? Again, there's the game plan. But we need to have that game plan. Yeah, roughly. Social, where people spend time, discover us. Website, where they visit us. Search is where they're searching for us. And this is what you're trying to actually do. Offline can be useful here as well. I'm a huge fan still of print media because it's a filter. Somebody reads specific magazines means they have a certain profile, which means they're likely to be interested in topics related to what you do. The other aspect here is instead of trying 3 or 4 platforms at once, try one, get it right. As soon as you have it right, get a second, because you don't want just one long term. But don't try and do 2 or 3 at the same time. You'll probably spread yourself too thin and most likely have less chance of success. So that's what I would do. So consider the strategy first. What are you going to advertise? What action do you want the person to take? We do that based on how do we think people buy in our sector. The second part is you need to get attention. And how do you do that? Well, the best and easiest way I find is if you speak to your target client. It doesn't mean you have to speak to them. It means your ads speak to them, or your Your content speaks to them. You're very clear onto who the target is. So if you're speaking to somebody with a certain profile or needs or wants, they're more likely to react to it. Whereas if you go bland, or if you go to try and capture everybody, you'll appeal to nobody. So the two pieces that we need to have in place. How are we going to, and they're interrelated. What's our goal with advertising? I'm going to this fairly quickly because some of it we went through before, and some of it is new, so I'm making a bit of a mix here. So I'm going too quick. Feel free to comment on there. I know we have a few questions from before that we put into this. So the goal could be to be known, to get attention, to get prospects, to get leads, to get people to buy. Now you can clearly see you would have a different, if you think about your own company, what you sell, whether you're a B2B company, B2C company, what exactly do we sell? If you do a campaign, you can see that all of those campaigns are likely to be different. This is why it's important that we decide what's the goal first. Why do we advertise? There's loads of options. And I think the vast majority of companies don't look at the options first. They just tend to advertise their thing and hope that somebody is going to buy it now. That tends to be what we see. Now, the rough guide here, you can do both and you can make both work. We can do calls to action in our business, get people to an event and they buy. They won't even know it. It happens. Others can know us for a long time and then buy. It's the same in most businesses. The rough guide, right, is the greater the pain your client has, the greater the need in a sense, the easier it is to sell to them if you have a good offer. And then you can focus on the sale now. The less the pain tends to be, the less the need they have, I tend to focus on the education, prospect, lead, and then purchase. Rough guide. You can break, they're not rules, they're a guide. You can do this in any way you want as long as you've aligned it. But this tends to work reasonably well. And it worked reasonably well because of this. Of our target market, I've shown this before, the vast majority of people here, on 90% of our target market don't care today. They are not interested today. Up to 3% are interested in buying today, and about 7% are interested but not buying yet. That's roughly the guide for most markets. We can go into the theory behind this. There's some stats as well behind it. But in all cases we look at, we see kind of a similar pattern. So if you're going to advertise for buy now, you're addressing that market. If you're good at advertising, if you have a good offer and your client tends to have a real need and somewhat urgent need, the buy now can convert a lot of people who are interested as well. These who are not interested yet, they're still in your target market, but not interested right now. They're less likely to buy. So you focus more on education for them. Or sometimes this is called brand building. I tend to go more with an education line, buy a brand, rather than just saying, look at me, I'm a brand. I don't think that's the same thing at all. I don't think it works very well. But you have different tactics. So you're trying to get the not interested to be interested and the interested to buy. That can happen over an instant. It can happen over a long period of time. And that depends on what you do, what your offer is, and the needs and pains of your clients. So that's the mix. That's what we're working with all the time. So where do you get the inspiration? How do you know what to do here? Because it can be tough on your own. I would look at other industries more than your own, because your own industry tends to have a way of doing things and everybody is stuck in it and everybody moves from company to company, bringing the same ideas back and forth between themselves. So other industries are often a better source of inspiration, especially. Competitors, obviously, you can see what they're doing, especially if they're doing something different. The ad libraries, this is very useful. So you get to see both LinkedIn and Meta, what ads other companies have run. There's a database there. You can see if they're still alive, how long That gives you an idea if they're working or not. So I find these to be pretty good sources. Newsletters. I don't know how many newsletters I'm signed up for because it gives me ideas. Doesn't mean I'm interested in them, but it tells me how they're pitching, what they're doing. And then you have everyday life. This is often the most inspirational piece. You see what people do, real people do, and then you try and use that within your thing. Loads of example ads. I have a couple here to show you. I showed you this one before. The reason I really like this one is it's very simple. It's very clear who it's for. Yeah. So accounting or bookkeeping makes it easy to dare, which is basically dare to start your own business. So it's clear who they're after. And it makes sense because when you start with a bookkeeping system, you stay with the same system. So hence they went after that. I really like this. Anyone who's LinkedIn, worth looking at. They have the advertising where they're saying stop showing, forklift trucks to people in offices. They've loads of other ones as well, other examples. Again, it gives you an idea for it. And in that case, it really helps their own targeting of what they're about. The example I'm going to show here, I really like because it basically doesn't sell washing machines and other white goods. They're selling a membership that's free. So basically getting people to join their email list. That's all they're doing. And this is an Aftonbladet, which is obviously everyone here knows. It is the largest, probably the largest publication in Sweden today, in the dailies. And that ad, so get more for your budget. What I like about it is you can run that ad. You get that ad right, you tweak it, it can run for a long time. I don't have to have more creatives. I can have the same ad all the time. Because the first time I see it, I mightn't sign up. Second time, may not. Third, fourth, what's this? Maybe it's interesting. And hence, it works. And you go into their world, as it were. What I like about it is you want to opt into it. I'm going to get a better deal if I'm on this list. That's nice. Instead of it being a forced way of saying, signing me up for their email list, I'm actually becoming a club member. I'm not becoming a number on a list. What's the benefits of being a member? Well, there's benefits there that suit me. Therefore, I want to be there. It's a big difference when people want to opt in versus being forced to opt in. Makes them feel special. It's more of a club than a newsletter. And then your newsletter and alerts does the heavy lifting of sales. So it's like a 1-2. Simple. Into the list sells. That's a much simpler business design than many others operate. This is a large company. Anyone knows this. This is one of the larger white goods sales companies in the Nordics. So the promoting, what's valuable to the client, call to action to join the list, you email, you have a sequence, you have a newsletter to take action to sell. Simple enough business design. Advertising is driving it. But the key thing here is what to advertise. In that case, they're advertising membership. Because they know if you're on there, you're more likely to remember them and buy from them. It's much cheaper. Much cheaper for them. Let's skip across that one. So the alignment here is really important. The advertising alignment with the landing page or website. Being clear on what to expect from the viewer and what happens next. And then the third, and this is a biggie, is it something reasonable we're asking? Are we expecting them to do something that is not reasonable or reasonable? And you have to make that judgment call. Where are they likely to be in their buyer's journey when they see this ad? Is what we're saying, asking them to do, reasonable in that context? The reason we go a lot of the time for prospects, not leads or sales, is because we can go with a small ask. Hence, I like surveys, I like quizzes, I like webinars as ways in. They get to know, they get to trust, they buy. But every business is different. They all decide how they want to do this. And this is where advertising then fits in, once you've decided, rather than just advertising. So we need to speak to the target client, help them answer the question, is this for me? That's the only thing we have to answer if you think about it. If somebody says in your business, yes, this is for me, then it's only a matter of time as to when they'll buy from you, provided you do the right things and you have the right calls to action in the right order. That's it. It's often overcomplicated. It's often messed up. It's often unaligned, because to make something simple, it usually takes a bit of work to make that work reasonably well for you. So when you're advertising, you have three basic choices. You can do them all yourself, you can use an agency, or you can work with a specialist. Now, specialists I quite like, because there can be somebody who's a Google specialist. It can be a Facebook specialist, an Instagram specialist. And they're individuals usually, and they know their job really well, and they work with you. One myth I know a lot of people think, oh, if I'm with an agency, they have more people, so therefore I'll be safer. I'd pick a specialist every day of the week, because it's still people, and I'd rather deal with the same person who knows my business. And even if, let's say, I can't get them on a Friday, but I get them the following Monday, that's no big deal. That's actually better than getting somebody who has no idea what they're doing and doesn't know anything about my business. Then talking to them doesn't matter. Right? So there's often a false illusion that you're safer with a big agency. I tend large companies and large agencies, sure. Small companies, I tend to go more specialists. So when you're buying from specialists, things to consider. I've been both sides of the fence here. I've been obviously an agency and ran multiple campaigns for multiple companies across many countries, in the same way I've done it for myself. And then I have been client side, helping clients select agencies. So one of the more important things is making sure to measure the right things. And businesses have a totally different view of the world than agencies. Too many agencies, I feel, are keener on the ad platform than they are their clients. So they want the awards, they want to be gold badges from Google and all this kind of stuff. You just want to achieve your business goals. You don't care how many clicks it takes. You don't really care about views. So agreeing what you want to measure is really important here. I've seen so many cases of this going wrong because of that. Not all channels are the same. So people who are good on Google aren't necessarily good on Meta or LinkedIn or content networks. They're often specialists. I quite like content networks as well. Affiliate programs. I quite like affiliate programs as well, because they're based on success. So understand which channels are they working. Most people have a specialization, that they like certain channels, and that's what they work with. I'd insist on an ad plan. Lots of agencies don't necessarily have one. You could be bamboozled with numbers. You'd be with displays, with click-throughs, with views, impressions, and all that kind of stuff. I just want a plan. What are we trying to do? What are we advertising? Should we really advertise that? Should we do something else? How are we targeting? What's the difference? So we're learning as we go. So I'd insist on that plan. When you're doing search, it's really important here is to separate brand search from keyword search. They're not the same. If you're finding that you're getting most of your sales through brand search, which you probably are on search, it should be a totally separate campaign. If you're Google Shopping and you've turned on Google Shopping, separate these out. And I would tend not to have my brand search within Google Shopping. Although, because you're basically paying for the same customer over and over and over, and you don't want to do that because you'll need to. And then you define success. What are you trying to achieve? So you get rid of all the gray zones within that. The team is an important part. I find too many, especially the larger agencies, are closer to the ad engine than they are to the client, whereas you want them to be part of your team. So working together on the goal, not they coming back every quarter and presenting a fantastic presentation, and there's no real conversation about the business. You need to keep it on the business. The other aspect to look for is what's included in their fee. I've seen a lot of occasions where everyone's happy, there's an agreement done, And then the agency says, okay, can you send me over all these graphics? We need, could be 100 different ad types. And then the client is sitting there thinking, how am I going to produce those? And that's an extra cost. So in deciding what's included and not is an important part of all of this. Your main job here is to help them to understand your business. They understand clicks, display, ad setup. They haven't a clue about your business. So your job is to get your business into them, get them thinking about you, get them understanding how your clients buy, what's important to them. So go beyond the numbers. It's an important part for you. I'm going to mention, I have a number of items here, and I'm only going to talk about 2 of them because there's too much detail on here. And that is the AI or not, the role of retargeting and use of Performance Max and Advantage Plus, which is basically treating your advertising as a black box. So you say, here's the target site to Google and Meta. Here's the advertising. Go find me some clients. And they'll pretty much go find traffic that's more likely to buy from you or take the action. Depending on what action you have, it's either purchase or lead gen, and they'll maximize and optimize that. It takes a bit of time. I've seen it work really well for some. I've seen it work terribly for others. And the setup matters. What are you trying to sell? What is your main goal here matters. And that's what I find usually is the biggest issue. For me, in the long run, it's going to be the only way to go. Because why would you manually be trying to find people on their platform? Of course, their AI should do it for you. So it's the only way to go in the long term. The question will be then, what's the role of an agency? And some of these platforms are made super complicated for absolutely no good reason from what I see. So in the long run, if Performance Max Advantage Plus does the job, you don't need anyone placing ads for you. You can do it yourself. And I know quite a few who've done that and had success with it. It's still a bit trickier than it needs to be. So there's probably room for somebody else in there. The other point I'm going to make here is balancing, and this comes back to the main message here today is, what are you advertising? And it could be branding, or it could be more retargeting to get people to take an action, depending on where you are as a business. Purchase now versus lead generation. Where is your balance? And it's often established companies can have a different goal than new companies. New companies, they want leads in because nobody knows who they are yet. So they spend more of their work on that. But then people don't buy from them because they don't know them. Therefore, they'll spend more on their branding, as it were. I wouldn't do branding per se, but you can do it in another way, like the membership thing that we showed earlier. You can advertise that, helps build a brand, get them to know you, and buy from you. Certainly works in the white goods sector. Yes, best practice does change. So the best thing to do once is not always in the future. So numbers to watch: advertising cost per customer per channel, initial purchase value of a customer. So let's say they cost you 100 crowns. How much do they spend if it's 200 the first time? What's the lifetime value? Let's say it's 500. We need to know these numbers. In some cases, the first purchase might only be 100. So you might break even on your ad spend. Then time matters. How quickly can you get that 500? This is the success and failure of advertising. I had my biggest learning on this was in Germany, where it took it was 13 months for us to break even. So we're waiting 13 months, but it was still the most profitable market we'd ever been in. The key there is cash flow. Can you afford to stick on? That's the decisions you begin to make. Then understanding segments. There's always high value, multiple purchase segments, and there's low value, single purchase segments within your customer base. Where do they come from? So this is where the tracking for me comes in. It's often why we do lead gen, to find out where people come from, and then when they buy, do they stay? What's our source of the initial traffic? This is the attribution area of advertising that gets a little bit more complicated. Then you go back up, you get cost per lead and per channel. You get conversion rate from leads to sales. And then you get lead type, why they became a lead, which channel. This helps us really understand for growth. Right? But on its own is no use. We need people buying stuff. But then it helps us to backtrack. And that gives me the full picture on, is advertising working or not? How difficult is this to grow or not? And you just work your way through. Now, you have two things to measure: cost per acquisition or cost per customer, and then you have lifetime value. It's as simple as that. How much the whole thing costing you, and how much are they going to give you back and over what time? And you're always trying to drive down cost per acquisition and increase lifetime value. Now, this one, you need to watch that. Sometimes you can shrink your market too much. So you can focus on the segment that's costing you the least, but then you have no growth. So you need to be mindful of that. In terms of, I put another measure in here, which would be growth, and we have it here, number of customers. You don't want that to get less and less. So sometimes your cost per customer goes up, but you have more of them and your business is growing. So there's the certain things you need to look at when we're doing this. And cash flow is the key. If you find this difficult, this is the numbers you're going to be faced with from an agency typically. They bamboozle you with all kinds of numbers like this. And they don't really matter. I'm only interested if people are buying from us, taking the action we want, and going on to purchase, because that's what pays the bills. Click-through rates, number of views, cost per click even doesn't matter. So if it's a high cost per click, but there's loads of them buying, doesn't matter. Reach doesn't matter, right? So most ad platforms are focused too much on that. Three things. If you find it too much, there's three things you should do and really have. And I would say clicks to leads or clicks to purchase, whichever one you're after, and then the number of leads to number of customers, and then the sales per customer. Now I'd also have one more in there, and that's the cost per customer. It's a really important one. If you have those, you can manage your advertising because you can navigate what's working and what's not. Right, I have a couple of ads. These couple I'm taking from the Ad Professor. He does it's an agency, but they only work with companies that are spending €50,000 per month on ads. So it's out of reach for most SMEs. But there's a couple of ads they showed this week. Obviously, Show Off Tuesday or Pancake Tuesday. They highlighted the Tesco one. You look, right? That's all it does. Gets people to look. We can deliver better. It's interesting. Look at the fast food delivery. And then using the data from another one. So it's quite an interesting one. And this one then, which we won't have any sound on it, but here's another ad. Showing what it is, an eyeliner. It's using demonstration and comedic effect. Really works well. This is an Instagram ad. Works really well. Again, to get people interested. It tells a bit of a story. These types of things work. Takes effort to make. That's the only issue with them. But if we're deciding and makes it work, then it's well worth the effort. I think we're doing too little of over here, and I've showed this slide many times. Because we're not doing any action. We're basically asking people to buy now. So before you start the advertising, I'm conscious I have 5 minutes left here. I look at it from the terms of a business design. So you get traffic at your ads, you send them to your website, and in some cases, some buy. So if you're doing an ad to buy now, that's what you're going to get. And it's usually between 1% and 3%. Most of your target market are still considering. So if you have a CTA here, you can do a follow-up. Join the membership, sign up for a newsletter, whatever it happens to be. I go a little bit better than that. Maybe you have a quiz or something like that. And then you have a further follow-up, and then people buy. So I tend to find this is 2 to 3 times the direct. And again, it makes sense if you start looking at how people buy from you. This is normally via email as well, or returning traffic, searching on your brand, hence the 3 channels for sales today. And then you get reviews, customer survey, which should give you more traffic. That survey is not customer satisfaction. That's to actually help people understand what they've used is really good for them and help you get more customers. And then you get more repurchase and referrals coming back to your business. So this is what you're trying to build in your business. So I'll go back to advertising. Where does it fit in? Is it on this route or is it on this route? Roughly speaking. Very different things, very different way of doing it. And even for e-commerce, a lot of e-commerce are going straight to purchase. And that's why I show the example is not. Because these are the things you're trying to balance. Having your target market, your message to get them to engage, landing pages that basically engages and speaks to them, thank you page after they've taken the action, very important page actually, the thank you page, email follow-up, and a reason for them to buy. That's the flow. Or you can get the flow directly into reason to buy now. They're the choices we actually make. When you do this and you go through the whole process, it's funny. You end up looking, especially in some companies, do I need advertising? And in some cases you don't. A lot of B2B ones you don't. Because if we get a very clear and clean message, more people will sign up. We then need to get the traffic. How do we get the traffic? Well, there's all kinds of options. Direct outreach, cold email, influencers, affiliate programs. And certainly for B2B, check the number of clients you really need. And you might find advertising isn't really the option as much as I like it. For a lot of consumer-facing companies, advertising is, but advertising is then scaling. You've made direct outreach work. You have call to actions in social and people actually take the action. Then your advertising can scale. It can scale really well. And then your goal could be to get more user-generated content and influencers to spread the word about buying. Opportunities. The biggest one for me right now is advertising strategy. Instead of just saying, buy my stuff, it'll be, okay, what's my game plan? What am I trying to do? Having aligned business design. Too many don't have that. Having email with leads and sales to get them to buy. Alignment between the ads and the on-site message. That's also often messed up. Influencer marketing. I think it's a huge opportunity and growing. I thought that was actually probably 2 years ago. I thought this mightn't take off as much as it could, or it seemed to be waning because people are getting tired of the format. I think we've only started there for a lot of companies. So I would look at how can you make that work for your business. Affiliates is another one. I loved affiliate marketing when we were doing it because affiliate marketing is basically, if they sell, they get money. If they don't, they don't. They're on the same team as you. So I quite like them. But it tends not to work if you can't sell yourself. If your business is not working, if people aren't really interested in buying your thing that quickly, affiliate marketing can be tricky. This is the most important message to understand the business you're in. So it's been a very quick fire hour, but it is leading to this. This is what we need to understand. We're in the business of marketing our business. That's what should define how we operate. Marketing isn't added to the end of the business. Marketing isn't something that we confuse with advertising, but we actually have it as a core of what we do. Because if we can't market and sell, we don't have a business. So I put it to the top of your list. How we work. We have 30 seconds or so left. If anyone has any questions come in, I have a few notes here, but I don't think I have any new ones in here. Otherwise, I'd cover off where we are next time. We have our alumni, and there it's turning interest into sales. And the end of March, Kaiser will join me for that session. And I just realized that link isn't updated. So it will be March-2025. The next session we have, I have a guest again, and that'll be Joseph from VAM. And actually looking forward to that session. I got one problem that we realized just this morning. That's supposed to be, again, second Tuesday of every month. I can't next Tuesday. So I'm hoping to see if it works for him to push it to the 15th of April. So I'll send you a mail about that. And that's about direct outreach. I'm testing a few different products, including VAM, for direct outreach. That's primarily for B2B, but the principles you can use for others as well. Anyway, thanks for joining me today. And I hope to see you again soon. And we will be in touch, send you the invites for the next session. Any questions or anything, just feel free to email in and we'll take from there. See you again. Thanks. Bye now.